The Bhagavad Gita, Chapter-2. In the second chapter, Lord Krishna tries to cajole and motivate Arjun, telling him that his behavior and conduct is unbecoming and unworthy that of a noble person, and that he should forsake this unmanly weakness of his. Arjun again voices his doubts and refuses to fight. Actually, it is after this, that is, it is after the 11th verse of the second chapter, that the discourse of the Bhagavad Gita actually begins. Krishna tells Arjun about the immortality of the soul and the difference between the body and the soul. He says that we should not grieve for the Atma, the soul, which is immortal, indestructible, and imperishable, and we should also not grieve for the body, which is perishable and has to die. Krishna tries to kindle the sense of duty in Arjun. He tells him about the yoga of selfless work, of equipoise, of balance and harmony, and also that we must do all our actions and all our works without the expectation of any reward for those actions. He also speaks of the person of steady wisdom, listing out the qualities of such a one. Chapter. Arjun is sitting depressed and dejected in his chariot, his eyes brimming with tears. He is overcome with doubt and compassion. Then Lord Krishna says to him, Parth, what has happened to you? At such a critical juncture, at such a crucial time, why this doubt, this hesitation, and this ignorance? From where have these come? This doubt, this hesitation, and this ignorance at such a critical juncture on the field of battle, with the fighting about to begin, is totally unbecoming of a noble person like you. It is not worthy of you. This conduct will take you nowhere. It will not lead you to heaven, nor will it give you fame here on earth. Rather, such conduct will be a blot on your fair name, and instead of fame, it will give you shame. It will give you a bad name. Therefore, get rid of this unmanly and unbecoming petty weakness and this cowardice of spirit, and get up to fight, brave warrior. However, Arjun's despondency prevails, and he replies, Keshav, Pitame Bhishma, and Acharya Drona, both are worthy of worship. How can I shoot arrows at them in battle? Rather than killing these respected and revered gurus, it would be far better for me if I lived the life of a beggar. Though they appear to be blinded by their misguided sense of duty and by their self-interest, yet they are my teachers. And how can I even think of enjoying those worldly pleasures which would be stained with their blood? And we do not even know what is good for us, our victory or theirs. After killing whom, we would not even want to live. Those very sons of Dhritarashtra stand before us ready for battle. Doubt and compassion have completely overpowered my brave nature and paralyzed me. I am totally confused about my duty. Therefore, I beg you, please tell me for certain what is good for me, what I must do. I am your disciple. I seek refuge in you. Give me refuge and teach me. Even if I were to become the king of this world full of wealth, where I have neither any enemy nor any equal, even if I were to become king of the gods in heaven, yet I do not see anything which will rid me of the grief which has taken hold of my senses and which has paralyzed them. Saying this, Arjun said to Lord Krishna, I will not fight, and became silent. Then, to the dejected, despondent, sad, and doubt-ridden Arjun, Lord Krishna, as if smiling, said, Parth, you grieve for those who should not be grieved for, yet you also speak words of wisdom. But the truly wise do not grieve for anyone. They do not grieve for the living, and they do not grieve for the dead. Never was there a time when you did not exist, or I did not exist, or all these kings did not exist. Nor will there ever be a time after this when we all shall cease to exist. Just as the soul, while in the body, passes through the stages of childhood, youth, and old age, so too is the taking on of another body by the soul after death part of the journey of the soul. The wise and the steadfast man is not agitated or confused by this. Feelings of heat and cold, pleasure and pain are the result of the senses coming in contact with the objects of the senses. They are all temporary and transient in nature. They come and they go. They have a beginning and they have an end. They do not last forever. Therefore, learn to endure them, learn to bear them patiently. The steady person who is not troubled by these, on whom these have no effect, and who remains the same in pleasure and in pain, he is wise and he makes himself fit for eternal life. Those who know the truth have realized the distinction between what is real and what is unreal. The real is that which is eternal, which can never cease to exist. It can never perish, while the unreal is transient and temporary. It ceases to exist and it has to perish. The body is unreal and it has to perish, while the soul, the Atma, is real and can never perish. The soul, the Atma, which pervades the whole world, which pervades this entire creation, is indestructible. No one can bring about the destruction of this changeless being. It cannot be destroyed by anything or by anyone. It is only the bodies of the eternal embodied soul which come to an end, and not the soul itself. The end of the soul can never come about, because the soul is indestructible. It is beyond comprehension and understanding too. Therefore, Parth, knowing this, you should fight. He who thinks that the soul, that the Atma kills, and he who thinks that the Atma is killed, both fail to see the truth, because the Atma neither kills nor is it killed. The soul is never born, nor does it ever die, nor having come into existence will it ever cease to exist. It always existed and it will always exist. It is unborn, it is eternal, it is permanent, and it is immemorial. It is not killed when the body is killed. It does not die when the body dies. He who knows that the soul is indestructible and eternal, that it is uncreated and unchanging, how then can such a person kill anyone or cause anyone to be killed? Just as we take off old, worn out and torn clothes and put on others that are new, so too does the embodied soul cast off worn out and old bodies and take on others that are new. Weapons do not cut or pierce the soul. Fire does not burn it. Waters do not drench it, nor does the wind make it dry. The soul cannot be cut, pierced, or harmed in any way. It cannot be burnt. It can neither be drenched nor can it be dried. The soul is eternal. It is all pervasive. It is unchangeable and immovable. It is the same for ever and ever. The soul is said to be unmanifest. It cannot be seen. It is unthinkable. It is even beyond thought, and it is unchangeable. Knowing it to be such, you should not grieve. And even if you think that the soul is born and that it dies too, even then you should not grieve. Because for the born, death is certain, and for one that has died, birth again is certain. Therefore, for what must happen, for the unavoidable and for the inevitable, you should not grieve. Beings are visible and seen only in their middle, only during the period after their birth and up to their death. They are not visible before they are born, and they are not visible after they die. What is in this to grieve about? Some look upon the soul as an object of wonder. Some speak of the soul as an object of wonder. Some hear of the soul as an object of wonder. And even after hearing, none whosoever has known it. It is very difficult indeed to know the soul. The dweller in every body, the soul, the Atma, is eternal and it can never be killed. Therefore, Parth, knowing this, you should not grieve for anyone. Further, considering your own duty too, you should not hesitate, for there is nothing better for a Kshatriya than to fight a righteous battle, a dharam yuddha, a battle for what is right. Fortunate indeed are those Kshatriyas who get a chance to fight such a war. You are lucky that such a war has come to you of its own accord, opening the doors of heaven for you. But if you do not fight this dharam yuddha, this righteous lawful war, then not only would you be failing in your duty, in your dharma and in your glory, you would also incur sin, and men will forever talk of your ill fame. And for those of self-respect and honor, ill fame and a bad name are worse than death. All the great warriors gathered here will think that you did not fight in the war out of fear, and those very people who held you in high esteem and who spoke highly of you, all of them will make light of you. They will mock you. Your enemies will ridicule your strength and say many unseemly things about you. What could be sadder? What could be more painful than that? Either killed in battle, you shall attain heaven, or victorious, you shall enjoy the earth. Therefore, Parth, stand up, resolve to do battle, treating pleasure and pain, gain and loss, victory and defeat, all alike, all the same. Get ready for battle. In this way, you shall not incur sin. Parth, what I have told you till now is the way of Sankhya, the way of knowledge. Listen now to the way of action, the way of Karma Yoga, the way of selfless work. If you understand it, and if your intelligence accepts it, then you shall be rid of the bondage that accompanies all action and all work. In this path of Karma Yoga, no effort is ever wasted, and no effort is ever lost. Each and every effort is counted, each and every effort is added up and accumulated, and there is never any failure. Even the smallest practice of this yoga protects one from the greatest of fears and sorrows. The people who follow this path to emancipation, determined to reach me, attain unity of purpose. Their understanding gets concentrated on this single point, while the thoughts of the undecided and the uncertain branch off into many directions and are endless. Those people who speak flowery language and who are seduced by the literal meaning of the words of the scriptures without understanding their true import. Those who get stuck in the rituals of the scriptures, focusing only on the details of such rituals, thinking that there is nothing higher than this, such people are ignorant people. Their minds are always full of their selfish desires. They regard the acquisition of luxuries and of physical pleasures as heaven. The objective of all their actions and of all their work and of all their efforts is the acquisition of power and of enjoyments, the result of which is repeated births for them. Those people whose minds are always after acquiring power and enjoyments, whose minds have been seduced by them and who are always entangled in them, such people are not able to concentrate their intelligence and their mind properly in their self, in their Atma. Their intelligence does not stabilize in their self, in their Atma. Parth, the scriptures deal mainly with the attributes of the three gunas and with religion, profit, and pleasure. Rise above all these. Free yourself from the duality of the pairs of opposites, such as pleasure and pain, profit and loss, victory and defeat. Always remain firmly established in your true Atma, in your true soul. Get rid of the anxiety of first owning things, the anxiety of first acquiring possessions, and then the anxiety of having to protect all that you own, all that you possess. When a large reservoir of water is available, there is little use of a well for water. Similarly, when the larger knowledge of Brahm has been obtained, there would be little use of the scriptures. Knowing Brahm is knowing the scriptures and much more. Parth, your duty is to do the work only, to do the action only. Your duty is not to crave for or to worry about the fruit of the work, about the reward of the work. Give up all attachment to the reward of action and then do your work, then do your actions. Your aim should never be the reward of your actions. Neither should the thought of giving up action ever enter your mind. Therefore, do all your actions without any attachment, regardless of success or failure. Maintaining equipoise, remaining the same in success and failure, is called yoga. Selfless work without regard to reward is far, far superior to work done with an eye on the reward. Therefore, Parth, seek shelter in selfless work. Always do all your work selflessly without regard for reward. Those who desire the fruit of their actions are lowly and miserable people. Those who have united their intelligence with Brahma, the Supreme, they are freed from all actions, good or bad. Therefore, Parth, apply yourself to the yoga of selfless action. Yoga is nothing but skill in action. Those people who have united their intelligence with Brahm, whose intelligence has merged and become one with Brahm, and who have given up the rewards of all their actions, such people are freed from the shackles of birth and death, and they reach that supreme state where all their sorrows end. When your intelligence shall cross over the dense forest and the quicksand of delusion, then will you become indifferent to all that you have heard or all that you have yet to hear. When your intelligence rises above both the bookish knowledge and also above the confusion and the contradictions of the scriptures, and becomes firmly established in the contemplation of the self, when it gets firmly established in the meditation of the self, then will you have attained to yoga. These words of Lord Krishna had a calming effect on Arjun. He could feel his despondency lift and lighten. He is eager to know more and asks Krishna, Dear Lord, the person whose intelligence is fixed and stabilized in contemplation and who has attained the Supreme, how is such a person? How should the person of steady mind sit walk and speak? Lord Krishna explains, listen Parth, when a person is able to curb the rush and rising tide of desires in his mind, when he is able to rid himself of all his desires, and when his Atma remains contented within itself, when he finds satisfaction and contentment within himself, then is he known as a person of stable intelligence, a person of equipoise, a person of stable wisdom. The person who is neither agitated nor drowned by sorrows, and who does not crave for or hanker after happiness, who is free from attachments, fear, and anger, such a person is great, and he is called a person of stable, of fixed intelligence and wisdom. The person who has no attachments, who is neither carried away by pleasures nor is overwhelmed and drowned by sorrows, the intelligence of such a person is firmly established. The person who can withdraw the objects of the senses from those very senses, just as a tortoise draws in all its limbs into its shell, the intelligence of such a person is firmly and strongly established in wisdom. Even though the embodied soul may have given up enjoying the objects of the senses, yet the longing for and the taste of those objects persists in his subconscious. Once he has attained the supreme, then such longing, such taste also melts away. Parth, even though a person may be very vigilant and very discriminating, and he may also always be striving to attain salvation, yet his strong and obstinate senses succeed in confusing his mind. Therefore, control the senses at all times. Join with me. Concentrate your mind on me constantly and establish yourself in yoga, because only one who has firmly controlled his senses, only his intelligence is firmly and strongly established. When a person starts thinking about the objects of the senses, then his mind gets attached to those very objects. Attachment gives rise to desire, and desire thwarted or desire not fulfilled gives rise to anger. Anger clouds memory, judgment, and discrimination, leading to the destruction of intelligence. With intelligence destroyed, the person himself perishes. But the disciplined person who has brought his senses under his control, he is freed from both attachment and aversion, and he enjoys the objects of the senses without any taint. Such a person attains to the purity of the soul, to the purity of the self, and in that purity of the soul, all his sorrows end. The intelligence of such a person of pure soul gets very quickly established and fixed in the peace and quiet of the soul. The uncontrolled and the indisciplined person does not have stable intelligence. He does not have the ability or the power of concentration of the mind, or of the intelligence, or of meditation. One who cannot concentrate or meditate can have no peace. And without peace, how can there be happiness? Happiness is impossible without peace. When the mind chases after the wandering senses, then those very senses lead the mind astray, just as a storm takes a boat away from its fixed path and tosses it about. Only when a person withdraws all his senses from their objects in every way does his intelligence get firmly and strongly stabilized and established. What is night for most people is the waking time for the self controlled, and what is waking time for most people is night for such a one. The ocean, though constantly being filled by the waters of the rivers flowing into it from all sides, always remains calm and still. Similarly, the person who stays calm, composed, and serene, like the ocean, when all his desires enter into him, without him in any way getting agitated or baffled, he attains true peace. But he who chases after his desires never attains peace. A person attains peace and tranquility when he surrenders and gives up all desires, when he does selfless work without expectation of any reward, when he has no attachment to anything, and when he becomes devoid of ego, the feeling of I, the feeling of mine. Parth, this is the divine state, the state of attaining Brahm. Whosoever attains this state is never again deluded. Situated in this state, at the time of death, one attains to the bliss of liberation, to the bliss of emancipation. He becomes one with Brahm, the Supreme. End of chapter 2. Om Shanti 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 Om.